You don't have to change the world every single day, but just by banking a couple of wins, you start to create an incredible amount of confidence. And then it becomes easier to chase your passions, help other people, start a business, get into better shape, and do all the things that we all want.
What's up, pals, and welcome back to another episode of The Passion Project. I'm your host, Hallee Smith, visual storyteller and creator on TikTok and YouTube. I hope that this podcast can inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and into your passions so that you can live a truly fulfilling life. And the best part about it is that we're on this journey together. So let's go. Welcome back, Podcast Beans, into another interview episode that I am very excited to share with you. Today's episode is based a lot around mindset, life viewpoints, kind of how to get yourself unstuck. It's extremely powerful. I learned a lot doing the interview, so I know you guys are too. And our guest is Nick Vitello. He's my friend and essentially a colleague. He is a life and business coach on social media, and he has a passion for teaching others how to improve their mindset so they can get out of their own way. Nick believes that, unfortunately, there is an epidemic of people who are unmotivated and unaware of what they're truly capable of because of the constant distractions that the modern world gives us. And I totally agree with that. Nick's mission is to wake those people up and show them exactly what's possible using discipline and accountability. Outside of coaching, his passions include self-development routines, yoga, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and golf. The talk today, it ties in all of these ideas of discipline and accountability to also being motivated, having a passion, and how these mindsets and these shifts that you can make in your life can really help you go after your passion project and find what those passions are. So I am very excited to share this one with you guys today. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Nick, welcome to The Passion Project.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. It's a dream come true.
I'm super excited to have you on. And so this is the first time we're going to do this, actually. For anyone listening, this is a new way that we're going to break the ice with our guests. So the question I'm going to ask you today, it's going to be kind of a funny, lighthearted question. Debatably the hardest question I'm going to ask you this entire interview.
I'm ready.
What is your most used emoji?
Okay, so it changes with time, right? It used to be like the smiling emoji with the cowboy hat, but lately it's been like the a,
Hand.
because I love to use it at the end of sentences when they're really, really important.
That's good. I love that. I don't use that one enough. I think I used it recently and I was like, this is an underused emoji. I like the cowboy smiling hat one too. That's funny.
Yes, that used to be my go-to because I was waiting for them to make a better one. And now I know that this is like the most underrated and underused emoji. So yeah, definitely add it into the lineup.
You know, they say you don't know a person until you know their most used emoji.
I've heard that. Yeah, all the experts are saying it. So I'm glad we covered that to start.
All of the experts. Me that just made that up. Just kidding.
Right, absolutely.
To actually jump in, I introduced you before this. We know you're a life coach and a business coach. How long have you been doing that?
So actually not that long. I started my life/business coaching company about a year and a half ago, but there was so much groundwork that went in before that because in order to truly feel like confident and qualified to tell other people how they can improve their life, how they can do any of these things, I've been like studying self-development for I want to say like 5.5, 6 years, so I could become the best version of myself. And then I quickly became like the advice person for everybody who is like, hey, you always have everything so together. You're so organized, this, that. Like, how do you do it? And everyone always was asking me questions about their life. And during the pandemic, I had some extra time and I was like, I feel like I have a chance here to make an impact on the world and help the people around me. And I started testing things with friends and family. And quickly they were like, oh my God, this actually changed my life. Like you've opened my eyes to so much. So I started developing programs and posting on social media. And now we fast forward and I made it to your podcast. So
Here
I
we
would say
are.
the journey's been worth it.
So, when you started talking to friends and family and diving into this, was that within this past year, or is the past year just when you started your business?
So that was right before I actually started the business. I wanted to make sure I had products and things that were actually effective and would be able to make a difference in people's lives. I didn't want to just come to market and be like, hopefully this works. I wanted to do a lot of research and development beforehand, so I knew that I had everything in place to actually be able to make a difference for somebody.
I think that's really great because you get a lot of people nowadays that, they say they're a life coach, and it's almost frustrating for people like you because it taints the name and it makes it harder for you to prove yourself. And so I really like that you put so much work in just to ensure that you are actually helping people. I think that that's really great, and it really builds the trust that you need to build in that type of career. So,
Yeah.
were there any or are there any continuous limiting beliefs that come up for you when you're, trying to get new clients or have people maybe think like, "Oh, he's a life coach." Like, "Oh, I've seen so many of those." Have you had any limiting beliefs or come across any obstacles like that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So it's funny because you would think some of my clients are in their 60s, right? So you could imagine when a 60-year-old is like, why am I paying a 24-year-old for life advice right now? This is so backwards. But at the same time, I've helped so many people and I've almost never heard even a single like negative thought when working with someone because I didn't invent self-development strategies. All I did was invent an organized way for people to stay accountable and start to implement them in a busy life where most people are working jobs they don't like and their day is filled with things that don't make them feel good. And when you prioritize self-care and things that make you feel good, everything else inevitably falls into place. So like those 60-year-olds that at first are like, okay, I'm trusting you here. Pretty soon, they're like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is the best thing I've ever done. And I don't know how you're so wise at such a young age. So it's really exciting. And to fully answer your question, I don't have any limiting beliefs because I have so many positive testimonials that I could always just fall back on those and know that I've changed so many lives that maybe one or two people don't need my help or don't appreciate it, but the thousands of other people that do, they keep me going.
That's a really good way of thinking of it. I
Yeah.
love that. And I've noticed that too. You can learn from any any age, and I almost feel like it gives you more perspective when you're learning from someone that's a different age than you, whether it's older or younger.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And even still, I mean, I'm so young, I have so much more to do and accomplish in my own life that's just going to further establish my credibility and the ways that I can actually add value to people's lives. But as long as the focus, no matter what your business is adding value to people and solving a problem, and if you can do that effectively, everyone's going to be happy and everyone wins in that situation. So it's just been really cool and quite the journey.
I really like that you lead with value. Leading with value is I believe the most important thing. So that's super cool. Now, I know you talk a lot about three important areas. That was one thing that stood out to me when I'm looking through your content, and you talk about three important areas of health. And I won't spoil it too much because I want you to talk about it. But just dive in, like just talk about let your passion just like flow here because I know you love talking about this.
Absolutely. So I'll try to keep it under 3 hours because this really is like my favorite. But yes, those three important aspects of your health, right? Your mental health, your physical health, and your financial health are so important, right? Because mental health is the base for everything that we do in our lives. If you're struggling mentally, then your physical and financial health are absolutely not going to be where you want them to be. But if you have the mental health, more specifically the discipline to do things you know you're supposed to be doing without having to negotiate with yourself constantly. Part of people's problem is that there's so much internal dialogue always happening. They're negotiating themselves out of things, they're breaking promises to themselves, and starting with a nice foundation of discipline and relying on that rather than motivation, which is like such a cliche phrase, but it's still so important because everyone struggles with it. And it's like it's the weight you can always keep lifting because discipline still comes and goes. It comes in waves, and there are ways that you can always improve that. And then it leads into physical health, right? If your physical health is not where you want it to be, but your mental health is in check, all you really need to do is start exercising and moving your body, trying things like yoga. I know you're big on yoga. I am
I'm
too. I'm
huge into
also,
yoga right now. Like I've been going so often. The one week I think I went every day.
I love that. Yeah, right now I'm also in the middle of my 200-hour yoga teacher training certification so I could teach yoga classes because physical health is so important too. And we store emotions and trauma in our muscles, like in our neck, our shoulders, our chest, and our hips. And when you start releasing and unlocking all of that tension and your body becomes more mobile, everything else gets easier. And then to go into the final one, let's say like your mental and your physical health are in really good shape, but financially you're struggling, that's going to weigh on everything else and it's just going to drag you down. So it's important that people also find ways to make money doing things that they love because then it's much easier to start making more money because you're not like shuffling into a job that you don't like. Instead, you're making money doing things that you're passionate about. And then with all three of those working for you, that's when life gets like really, really good. But yeah, that's ultimately like those three pillars of health that I work towards with my clients and everyone who follows me on social media, just helping them try to get all three of those into a balance that works for them.
So mental health, physical health, and financial health. Is there
Yep.
an area that you see people more often than not struggle in, or do you kind of see people often struggle in a mix of the three?
People usually struggle with the mental health, and that doesn't mean like serious issues like anxiety or depression. It's always just little things, right? Not being able to motivate themselves, not being able to bring themselves to do things they know they need to do, and breaking promises they make to themselves. Most people start their day hitting the snooze button a couple of times. And it doesn't sound that bad, right? It's like, oh, I hit the snooze button twice so I get 16 extra minutes of sleep. But that extra sleep is not going to make a huge difference in your day. But let's say your alarm was set for 7 and now you wake up at 7:16, you broke two promises you made to yourself the night before. You made a decision, I'm going to wake up at 7 because I have goals to chase or things I know I need to do. And when you're starting your day breaking a promise you make to yourself, imagine what else happens throughout the day, right? Maybe your coworker brings in donuts and you see them there and you're like, "Oh, I'm not going to have any of those." But then next time you're in the kitchen, you're like, "Well, there's only one left, Like what's one?" And there you go, you've broken another promise you've made to yourself. And people are always undermining themselves and then they struggle with confidence. And then when something really important happens and they're like, "Okay, like my doctor says I need to go to the gym every single day or I'm I'm going to lose 10 years off my life." But then they struggle to bring themselves to do that and they wonder why because they don't have integrity with themselves.
The one thing you said, it's funny you said the thing about snoozing the alarm. I recently made a video that was kind of a joke about the three different types of people setting their alarm, and one of them was the person that sets like 10 alarms.
Yeah.
And I told people to comment, which one are you? And that was the most commented one. So it makes sense when you say that a lot of people struggle with breaking promises to themselves. And, I know I've struggled with that as well. And so I think what ties into that a lot is trust. And you kind of indirectly touched on that. So I want you to talk about that more. How do
Yeah.
how does someone facilitate trust with themselves? Because essentially that's the most important, relationship you're going to have, and where you need trust is with yourself and not just other people.
Absolutely. Happy to touch on that. So, I think one of the most monumental things that I ever started doing for myself, it was about 5 years ago while I was in college and I was kind of dealing with a bout of depression myself. And I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I took a shower and I just sat in the shower with like my head in my hands and I was like, "What is going on?" And I turned the water to as cold as it could go and I just sat there with myself for a minute. And the next thing you know, I was sitting there laughing, even though I was freezing. I was sitting there so cold, and I was like, "What's going on right now?" And then afterwards, I did some research on it, and I was like, Oh my God, cold showers release all of these endorphins and feel good hormones in a natural and healthy way because there's so many health benefits too. It's not like the dopamine hit you get from scrolling on TikTok that's like kind of self destructive. And I realized I was like, this is like a tool in my toolbox now that I could use whenever I need. So I always teach people if you're looking to build more trust with yourself, start with taking a cold shower, even if it's 30 seconds, and freezing yourself, which sucks. Like it's very hard, but you will meet like the voice, that voice in your head that's like always talking you out of things, and you'll meet that person. And they will be telling you, "Oh my God, we could end this right now. Just turn it back to warm." And you kind of have to go toe to toe with that person. And suddenly you create this trust and confidence in yourself that like it's almost you versus you. And it's like, there's like the analogies of like, are you feeding the good wolf or the bad wolf? Most people have never fed like the good wolf in their mind, and they don't even know that there's two sides to the story. And this is a great way to confront that person and deal with getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And you create so much trust in yourself. And I didn't come up with that, but like I said 5 years ago when I was dealing with depression myself, I intuitively I just tried it and then it worked and I was like, "Wait a minute, I feel like I just struck gold here." So that's one of the easiest ways that people at home can absolutely start building trust with themselves today.
That's interesting you found that on accident. I've done cold showers before. I was really into it before I moved down to Florida and like just getting that freezing cold because you're like hyped up after and you're like, "Oh my God, like what am I doing?"
Yes.
But I
Yes.
didn't really know the science behind it that you just explained, but it makes sense. And I mentioned this to you before off camera, but I tried, oh shoot, what was it called? Cryotherapy. I tried cryotherapy.
Yep.
And now that you're saying that, I'm thinking back on the experience and like I had the girl record me doing it and I was jumping up and down and I was laughing and I was just like being so goofy. And she's like, "I love your
Yeah.
energy." And I was like, interesting. Like she loves my energy right now, but earlier today I was feeling really terrible and like super anxious and now I'm able to just walk in here and be like laughing and cheering her up and like making her day just from because I'm standing in this cold. So it makes sense that it's those natural, you said dopamine?
Yeah, dopamine, endorphins, hormones, so much happens. Not to mention it speeds up your metabolism. So if you're looking to lose weight or just be healthier, it does all these things to the fat in your body. It starts burning the bad fat and creating the good fat in your body that your body actually needs. Most people don't even know that that's a thing that exists. They just think all fat is bad. And it starts converting the bad fats into good. But most importantly, I love it as a tool to energize myself and hype myself up. But I've graduated from those cold showers and now I take ice baths.
A step up, a true step up.
And it's the same thing as the cryo. It's that full body experience where you get in and it sucks. And beforehand, you're like, I don't feel like doing this. Like, I still wake up and I don't want to do it, but I look forward to how I feel after. And when I'm getting in that like 50-degree tub of water, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm like the ice bath guy now. I never ever would have pictured myself like doing anything like this because it's not a new concept. But now that I know what it does for you, I get out and I feel like $1 million. Like I feel like I don't even need to like drive my car to work or wherever I'm going. I'm like, I'll just run there. It's 30 miles, no big deal. I feel like I could do it right now.
Suddenly you turn into Superman.
You create this incredible mindset and seriously you start to become unstoppable because you get comfortable being stressed and your like stress threshold, like maybe usually here is your baseline and like anything above it like is a panic attack. You start to push the limit there of what makes you feel stress because your body gets used to being under stress, and it's the good kind of stress. But I would say ice baths or cold showers, that's how it starts. Easy way to start changing your life.
I really like that you explained everything behind it. I think that's the best approach for when you're introducing it to someone. Because I
Yeah.
remember when I first heard about cold showers, I was like, oh, okay, like people just like try to be tough. But when you explain all of the health benefits and the mental health benefits and how it helps and why, I think that it's easier for people to digest and easier to essentially sell them on starting to do it.
Seriously, and that's the coolest part is like this isn't a product you have to go and buy. No one's actually selling you anything. We're just trying to convince you to become a better and stronger version of yourself. And if you can do it for free, I was gonna say you need to just try it once. It's more like twice though, because the first time can be a little rough and you're just gonna like freak out and tense up. You really have to try it twice so that you can get in there because your shoulders are just gonna like, you're gonna tighten up like we talked about with the yoga, your muscles are just going to be like, oh my God, what's happening? But you need to relax into it and find your breath, just like in a yoga class. That's why I like those things so much because they go hand in hand with like the mind body connection. And breath is the thing that connects those two, the mind and the body. So getting in there, breathing, relaxing into it, confronting the voice, and then by the time you get out, you're not going to recognize yourself. You're going to be like, I have never felt this good this early in the morning in my life.
So it's even on top of that, it's a self control practice. The one thing I want to go deeper on that you said a couple minutes ago was that you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's one of my favorite quotes. And one of my track coaches said it to me in high school. And I ended up training, like, I kept that quote in my head the entire season. And I trained harder than I'd ever trained because I was constantly telling myself I have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so I was constantly pushing that threshold. Aside from ice baths, like, what are some things people can do to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable or to, just start kind of integrating that in their life?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. So, another really good one is public speaking. Everybody struggles with public speaking because right now, this isn't too hard, right? You and I are having a conversation. Maybe a lot of people will see it, maybe a couple will. But when you're actually in a room full of people and you're speaking in front of them, and your body, like you feel yourself go cold or pale, and your palms are sweating, and all of that, it's the same thing. You get comfortable being uncomfortable and speaking in front of people. Most people think that like when you public speak a lot, that feeling goes away, but it's always still there. You actually just get more comfortable confronting that feeling, and now you're comfortable being uncomfortable. So I think public speaking or just having hard conversations is a good one.
It's
But
almost
like we
like
touched on,
desensitizing you.
yeah, that's exactly it. Like getting used to it, which is such a simple way to put it. And the other one, like we've touched on a couple of times, I'm so glad we keep coming back to this, is yoga. People think yoga is like super easy, like mostly girls do it. It is extremely challenging, and sometimes you're holding a challenging position for a long time and you're burning out your muscles. And this is a great place, again, where you kind of have to confront that voice in your head that's like, oh my God, like we've been holding this lunge for what feels like 3 years. I need to come out of it. And it's like, but that's just your mind saying that. Your body and your muscles, although they're under stress, they can handle a lot more. We are capable of so much as humans. That's why we've risen to the top. We're like the most amazing species on the planet. But most people never really confront that voice and stand up to it. They just listen to it. If you're doing push ups, let's say you're doing 5 push ups, and the voice after 3 is like, I can't do anymore, your body quits. But realistically, there's always more in the tank. You can always dig deeper. And ice baths, yoga, and public speaking are great ways to get comfortable being uncomfortable and confronting yourself.
I love that. Everybody listening, write those 3 things down. Take
Yeah.
note, try them. Those are 3 really, well, public speaking might be a little harder, but the other 2 like are great places to start and then you can work your way up. I've used public speaking also to push myself out of my comfort zone. And
Yeah, I listened to your podcast on that. It was so good.
thank you. Yeah, and so I completely agree with you and I want to emphasize that like how much pushing yourself out of your comfort zone can build your confidence. And that's something I actually also wanted to talk about with you because you're big on confidence. You have a download called the Confidence Catalyst where you help
Yes.
people like fast track feeling more confident on a daily basis.
Right.
So what is your message on confidence? Like, in as long as you want to put it. I know you love talking about it. So kind of how we did with the three important
Okay.
areas, just talk about your views on confidence.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the Confidence Catalyst is a program I created for creators at the Brands Meet Creators Academy, which I'm the director of client success there. And I teach other influencers and social media creators, content creators, how to land and navigate the world of brand deals. But just like anything in life, starts with mental health as a foundation and discipline. So I created this short program so that people in the group can start to create confidence behind themselves. And it's essentially an 8-day program with an accountability checklist so you can start creating that integrity with yourself and keeping promises that you make to yourself. Simple, obvious ones like things like meditation, things like taking those cold showers, and then some other things that are maybe a little bit less obvious. But the biggest point is all about literally checking a box that says, I did what I said I was going to do, and now I feel better. And this is another easy thing to implement in your own life. Usually, people, when they do keep a promise they make to themselves, they don't take the time to actually bank the win, right? They just move on to the next task, the next distraction, the next TikTok, whatever's going on in their life. But I think it's really important to, like, I'm really big on journaling, and I write in my journal something that I accomplished today, something that made me feel good, something that I did for someone else today. And all of that just adds to my confidence, right? I'm doing things that I decided I would do the day before. And I also did extra things that make me feel good. And I can say, wow, look at everything I did today. Most people just go to bed after they scroll on Instagram or TikTok for a while, and they're not creating any momentum for the next day. But the last thing I do is journal and create momentum for the next day and confidence and say, wow, look at all of the stuff that I accomplished today. Even if it's simple, it might have been laundry, making a TikTok, and coming on your podcast, right? You don't have to change the world every single day, but just by banking a couple of wins, you start to create an incredible amount of confidence. And then it becomes easier to chase your passions, help other people, start a business, get into better shape, and do all the things that we all want.
So, what was a time that you personally felt a lack of confidence? And kind of what did that moment feel like? And then how did you overcome it?
Okay, I like it. That's a really good question because I always work so hard to have some confidence, but I'll give you one that was recent. So at the beginning of my yoga teacher training, on the very first day, the instructor with no warning was like, "Okay, you guys are all one at a time going to the front of the room and you're going to guide us through 3 sun salutations." And I like barely I know what that is, but it's totally different when someone's just telling you to do them. And for anyone who doesn't know or doesn't do yoga, it's just like a simple 10-part movement
Yeah,
essentially.
I was going to say for anyone who doesn't do yoga, we might need to give them a little context. But yeah, it's kind of one of the
Yeah.
quote unquote basic things you do in a yoga class, like one of the things that you go through.
Exactly. Exactly. Most of them open up with that. And I always prepare for everything, right? Prepare for a podcast, prepare for whatever in order to boost my confidence because preparation is a big part of confidence. But she caught me off guard and was like, guys, you're all going to the front of the room. And I was like, oh, wow, I wasn't ready for this. And even though I know exactly how to do a sun salutation, I know exactly how to guide everyone through that movement, and I ended up doing extremely well. In my body, full panic mode. I was like, oh my God, this is not what I'm used to. And I work so hard always to raise that threshold of like stress that I'm used to. But we were well above that. I was like, I haven't done a public speaking related thing like this in a long time. And even still, I just knew in my mind, I was like, I'm going to look back on this moment for a long time and how hard it was, but also how well I did. And we recorded it too. So you get to look back after and see how you came off. And I was like, wow, I actually looked pretty confident up there. Even though in your body it's full panic. absolute like chaos, like the SpongeBob episode where everything's on fire and they're just like, that's what comes to mind. Like that's how it felt.
What you're describing is, I believe, called radical confidence, where you might not feel confident, but you're acting it out and in turn becoming confident about it.
Yeah, I think I've never heard that term before. I really like that. I think that's a great way to put it because that's what ended up happening. And everyone was like, people were asking me after, they were like, how did you do that so well? And I was like, are you serious? It didn't feel like it went very good. And they were like, no, it was great. You looked so calm up there. And I was like, yeah, because I was, even though I totally wasn't, right? I was freaking out. And very quickly now, anytime we're in that class, because now sometimes we have opportunities to do some extra speaking, teaching, whatever. You know, we're doing 25, 45-minute flows that we have to teach at once. And anytime there's an opportunity to get an extra repetition in, I take it because I want to get more comfortable with that discomfort. And now I'm at the point where I'm in front of these people, it's easy. Even if I'm totally unprepared, I'm used to that feeling. I know what it feels like and I know how to sit with it, breathe through it, and come across as confident.
You desensitized yourself to it.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, I got very used to it, just like anything. I mean, the first time I took a cold shower, like I was talking about like in my dorm, I was like, what am I even doing? This sucks. But then after I was like, whoa, something changed about me here. And that's what happens every time you decide to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and you come out of the other side.
Yeah, that's so true. And confidence is something that I've always struggled with, but what I've learned increasingly more is that, like you described, a lot of times people don't see you as not confident when you feel like you're unconfident. And that's kind of where that radical confidence plays in. And the idea that even if like you're always going to have to be putting in work to feel confident essentially. And I used to think that confidence would just be inherent. And maybe some people have that. But for me, I don't think it's ever going to be fully inherent. And you're always going to be having these situations where you feel that lack of confidence, but you have to show up anyways in a way that might not feel confident, but looks confident.
Yes, I think you put that so beautifully. And it just goes to the fact that we always think confidence is a destination or happiness is a destination or whatever this like castle in the sky is. We think when you get to a certain point that you're going to be there. But you and I both know from having a lot of followers on social media, you would think you just, oh my God, that person has so many followers. They must be so confident in the videos they make or the content they produce. And that's not at all how it works. It's a constant battle every single day. Confidence isn't a destination. So I think you put that so nicely.
That's a limiting belief I had too. When you say that, like it immediately makes me jump to when I was growing on TikTok, I thought, okay, once I hit 1 million followers, I'm going to feel like secure in the fact that like I have an audience. And that was could not be further from the case. It almost made me
Right.
more anxious when I hit that number because then it's like you have this upkeep and you're always making more content and you have to continue to show up. It's not just like it ends. So like you said, it's a journey. I think that's really
It's an
great.
it's a journey that never ends.
Nope.
Absolutely never ends. And it's beautiful when you know and understand that so that every day you can just take little steps to work on yourself because it's still something that you can build over time, but also sometimes things tear that confidence down. And also, you kind of get desensitized to it anyway. And then suddenly it's like gone. Like, wait a minute, where did all my confidence go when you get put in a new tough situation? Maybe like first time you do a public speaking gig in front of 100 people. It's like, wait a minute, I've gotten used to speaking in front of 10 people. Where's my confidence? And it's gone. And it's like you're back to square one. And you have to get comfortable again in that discomfort.
Exactly. And I think that's why it's so important trying to adopt and like having people adopt the ideology of getting comfortable being uncomfortable because it's going to keep happening. I want to shift here a little bit. We've been talking a lot of, I don't want to say not necessarily business, but like we're getting deep on the personal growth and development, but I want to tie this into your passions because you touched on this a little bit earlier and how having this healthy balance in your, your health, your physical, mental, and financial health tying into you following your passion project. So kind of how does that tie in? How do you see it tying in?
Absolutely. So the way I think of it is you need three passions in your life. One to make you money, one to keep you healthy, and one that you love. You just love. It doesn't have to do either of those things. So when you can set out for those three things, because a lot of people don't even have one hobby, and they're just unsure completely about everything that they need to be doing. This is a great place to start. Maybe you only have one hobby that you love, but you don't have one that keeps you healthy and one that makes you money. And when you can come up with those, it gets so much easier. Everything gets so much easier because my hobby that makes me money is coaching. My hobby that keeps me healthy, I guess you could say I have a couple. I mean, I love yoga, I love weightlifting, I love taking ice baths. I love playing golf and doing jujitsu. I have a couple, but as long as you have one to keep you in check, that's perfect. And then one that you love, you just love for you. I guess for me, golf would be a better one there because golf is very mentally challenging, which I love. I love that mental challenge, but also, as we've gathered, I also just love being out in nature and unplugging for 4 to 5 hours. That is priceless to me. Everybody knows if I'm going golfing, they're like, okay, Nick's away. Don't bother him or he's not going to answer. And it's just nice to have something like that, always able to escape.
I love that. And I feel like I needed to hear that. So I hope you guys listening also needed to hear that because that's just, you said that so well. And it makes so much sense to have this balance that your passions in the same way that you have that balance with your health. I think that there's a bit of pressure nowadays with do what you love, show up on social media, and you can do whatever you want and make money off of your passions. But I do believe because personally I've been hitting a place of burnout, but like you have to have those other escapes. And you said that
So
so beautifully.
important.
Passion project,
It's
you just like nailed it. You just nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm happy to be here and share this with everyone. Um, and those three things almost tie into those three aspects of health, right? Your mental, your physical, and your financial health. If you have hobbies, one that makes you money, financial health, check. If you have one that keeps you healthy, physical health, check, and then something that you just love, it's going to help your mental health. So they essentially, I didn't even know, like I didn't even make that connection until right now, but those three things take care of those three aspects of your health. And it's just like a perfect link. It's like a key in a lock.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. I love that. So, one of the things I like to do on this podcast at the end is to kind of wrap up with action steps. I like to give people tangible things that they can do right when they sit the phone down, stop listening, or while they're listening to
Right.
get started. So, if someone's kind of in a place where they feel like their life's a mess or they're lacking confidence, aside from following you, obviously, checking out your content, what would you
Right.
say that like first step would be?
I think first step that I always recommend for people is taking a cold shower. If you're driving, wait till you get home. And as soon as you get home, don't worry about like, oh, but I already showered today. Oh, my hair, this, that. I got to shower later, whatever. It has nothing to do with like cleaning yourself. It has to do with the cold exposure. Give that a try. And then when you're done, grab a piece of paper, write down three passions, three things you are doing or you think you could do, one to make you money, one to keep you healthy, and one that you just absolutely love. And that alone right there is just going to make a change in your mind. And you're going to say, wait a minute. Your brain's going to be like, something's about to change here. I feel like we're about to figure something big out. And from there, you can start to knock down some of life's other limitations that are usually self imposed.
So step 1, I'm just going to repeat what you said so that we can really drill this into you guys. Ice bath, cold exposure therapy. And then you're going to take your piece of paper and you're going to write down your 3 things, which were?
One passion that you have or can come up with to make you money, one to keep you healthy, and one that you just love. Like those activities that just like make you smile uncontrollably or like give you that feeling in your gut where you're just like, oh my God, I love this.
Because
And that's
I
it.
love that. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you got to enjoy the journey and the process and your life. So I think
Yep.
those are amazing action steps for people to take. Last but not least, where can people find you?
People can find me on TikTok at Get Ahead with Nick. You can find me on Instagram at the same username. You can find me on YouTube at the same username. And you could also follow my Twitter, which is Get Ahead W Nick, because of the character limit. And I just tweet out inspirational quotes that I see or think of myself. And you could get in contact with me at any of those. I have a link in my bio where you can ask me anything. You can just go ask me a free question, and I will record a quick video getting back to you with an answer. People ask me things like, what's the meaning of life, or describing a specific situation, and they're like, what would you do here? So if you want to get in touch with me, those are some really good ways.
Awesome. And everything he just said is going to be linked in the show notes so you guys can easily go find him and get ahead with Nick. So, Nick, thank you so much for being on today. I really enjoyed having you as a guest on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace out, podcast team.